Hi guys, my name is Anastasia Stoyanova, and in today's episode, I would like to talk about my experience as an ESL instructor in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So, as you know, that this is my fourth year in Toronto, and I've had very mixed feelings about the city and the experience that I've had here. I would say both good and not so good, but I'm gonna let you decide after you listen to this episode. And the thing is that I worked in various language schools in Toronto, so it's not just one school that I worked for, but there are several schools, and I can say that first and foremost that this experience is unique. And as you know that I'm a very experienced ESL instructor, and before Canada, I had been teaching groups and preparing people for Cambridge exams. I had been working with other English teachers, and I was teaching them how to teach other people, and I was helping them to improve their language skills. And in this episode, I'd like to just talk briefly about how what kind of experience working in Toronto private language schools you can get. There's just some insights, and I'll talk about first of all, education requirements from you as a teacher, as an English teacher, as a what they call here. They never use the word teacher unless you're teaching at a school, like primary, secondary, or high school. They use the word instructor. So for you as an English as a second language instructor, I'll talk about pay and employment conditions, and also I'll compare several schools, but I will never name the school in particular because, like I said, I've been working for several language schools, and this episode is not about their reputation or anything like that because every school is very different, and I liked every experience I got. Of course, my life has never been so easy because I can say that this kind of job is not easy. It's not for every person. And I'll talk about some conclusions, and I'll talk about some of the insights and ideas regarding teaching formats, regarding managing big groups of people in a hybrid format. So I'll talk about that. And not only, but also I want to share just some key lessons and key takeaways, something I learned from this experience, and I hope you could benefit from that for sure, as a prospective ESL teacher, or maybe you're just curious about my life and this kind of experience I've had over the course of the 4 years. Yeah, it's my fourth year in Toronto. So firstly, I should say that the mandatory credential requirement is the bachelor's degree. You cannot get a job unless you have higher education, and your bachelor's degree if you are coming from a different country, because a lot of people who teach here in Toronto, they are not native speakers. They were not born here. I would say most of the teachers, it's kind of diversity. So I was not the only immigrant teaching English. Of course not. But I think we can all bring a lot to the table, so to speak. We can all give the best what we've got. We are more patient as teachers, because every immigrant has their own unique story. So anyway, coming back to the requirements. So you got to have a higher education. Bachelor's degree is the minimum. I personally have master's degree that has been evaluated by World Education Services officially. So I have had vast experience when it comes to teaching. But also, I want to point out that before coming to Canada, I was a business owner. I was managing my own groups, my own business, my own thing. So for me, that was a huge transition where before Canada, I had been working for language schools. I had worked at university, and then I'd been a business owner, and then When I came here, I just had to take the job because that was one of the requirements for my immigration pathway. So that's why I kind of started from scratch. But what helps a lot is also when you have international certifications, because the minimum requirement is that you need to have either CELTA, that's a very prestigious certification for teaching English as a second language, or TESOL Ontario. So TESOL Ontario in most cases is a requirement. So either one or another, CELTA or TESOL Ontario. In my case, now I have both of these certifications, but when I just got to Toronto, I had CELTA, and that helped me to get my job. But the market paradox is that I think that these requirements are pretty high, and the standard that you want to uphold is very high, and you gotta meet these expectations. But what you should not expect is a decent pay, because most of the schools in Toronto, they do not pay you more than $30 Canadian dollars per hour. And in fact, you have to teach very big groups, like more than 10 people for sure. And there is a stiff competition among English teachers, or English ESL instructors, as they call them here. So you gotta be prepared to get low pay for very, very high standards and high requirements and certification that you have to invest into. So that's the naked truth. Also, you gotta say that most of the schools don't have this indexation for their salary. So it means that salary does not increase over time. By the way, one more thing, that if you're working for a school, you would not be allowed to have your own blog, or you would not be, it's not kind of a good thing if you have your own teaching practice and you teach for a school. So in most places, they would not welcome that. And also, you got to be prepared that they're not going to distribute hours evenly. Like in most cases, whatever teacher was hired first gets more hours. So they call that seniority. So it means that you gotta, first of all, build your own reputation and prove that you're an amazing teacher. That's the first thing. And then secondly, you're not guaranteed a certain number of hours. For most of the schools, they would never give you more than like 24 hours, 26 hours, something like that. Though for an immigration pathway, you're required, let's say, to have 30 hours or more as a full-time job. So that means that you would have to look for one more job, maybe an evening tutoring. In my case, I worked from 9 to 3:30, and then I would go to teach during the evening shift from 5 to 9:30 p.m., something like that. That would be almost every day from Monday to Thursday. So that's a great experience. It teaches you resilience for sure, and just the skill to survive and to be strong. Many great things that you can learn from that. Also, I want to point out that any lunch break is unpaid. So when you have, let's say, lunch, sometimes you still have to stick around and talk to other students, but you're not paid for that. So be prepared. Or maybe you prefer to leave the classroom and go and take a walk. So that's what I did sometimes. And in my case, I can compare several schools, because I've switched schools, not because I wanted to do that. Don't get me wrong. I love my job so much. And in most cases, of course, it's just because I needed more hours, or I needed better benefits, or I wanted a better pay, because I do feel that I deserve a better pay regarding all the experience certifications that I uphold. Like I have CELTA, TESOL Ontario right now. I have so many international certificates, FCE, CAE, CPE. Those are all Cambridge exams that I've been preparing people for. IELTS General, IELTS Academic, CELPIP. I have CELPIP Instructor certification, CAEL, that's Canadian Academic English Language Test, and instructor certification for that. So I have lots of things, and I always felt that I I deserve more. So that's why I kept searching, because I wanted something to make me feel fulfilled. The important thing, you got to understand that every school is very different. And when I compare several schools, at one of the schools, they will you will always start from, almost always you will start from a supply teacher. So do not expect to start as a full-time teacher. It doesn't happen like that for most private organizations and businesses. And the absence of textbooks. So in most of the schools, they do not have curriculum, so they might expect you to prepare lesson plans in Google Documents, and then those lesson plans might be approved or might not be approved by a manager. So it takes a lot of time, and in most cases, they never pay you for preparing those lessons. So preparation time is very rarely paid. Only in one of the schools that I worked for, it was paid for, but only like a fixed amount of money per month. So you see that it's not ideal, and you gotta understand that, of course, if you want more money, you would have to tutor, you would have to do some self-employment. Either way, that's what I was doing. But remember that for immigration pathway, any self-employment or business never count. It's like you can work 5-6 hours tutoring people on top of what you're doing for a Canadian employer, but you got to understand that it would never count towards your immigration pathway, and that's a shame, I could say. That's a big loss for Canadian government, because so many hardworking ESL instructors who tutor, who work so much but do not get that kind of recognition just because it's claimed as a self-employed teacher, right? It's very unfair, but it is what it is. So for resources, provisions, and social benefits, it varies a lot. Only in one of the schools I worked, they offered social benefits and some like dental and visual coverage, which was like for me now, I feel like it's a bare minimum. You got to have that, because teacher is a great job. Being an ESL instructor is a great job. You deserve that. And in most cases, read the contract very carefully to see how they offer that and what are the conditions, like how you can get that. Most private schools, of course, they are not unionized, so don't expect your rights to be protected like that. Yeah, so you gotta work really hard and earn a low pay. So please be prepared to tutor and teach a lot. So that's the motto that I've been living. And I want to say that in most of the schools, class sizes are big, more than 10 people for sure per class. Now things are dying down in Toronto when it comes to offline classes. Fewer and fewer people want to come because I feel that it's so expensive just to live in Toronto these days. Several years ago, when I was just starting as an ESL instructor here, more people were taking classes offline, face-to-face. So you could expect like 15 people per class. I also have experience, by the way, apart from ESL. In one of the schools, I was teaching academic pathway program. So that was really rough, because there were so many people who wanted to come to Canada. Like these days, I don't think that they have so many in those groups. But back then, I remember I would always stay up late grading those essays, and I'm a very thorough teacher. Like I want to check every sentence, I want to check every collocation, I want to write so many comments. And imagine if they write an essay like once per 2 weeks, or once per 2 weeks. I think that was the frequency. That took so much time to actually grade that, because when you're an ESL instructor, especially if you're teaching for an academic pathway, that takes so much time and effort to do that. So I do think that you got to be prepared and be patient. And like I said, in most cases, I know that in Toronto, in many schools, they have like hybrid classes. Sometimes they ask you to come offline. I know that it's up to you, because some teachers, they choose one thing over another, and they just tell their management, like, I don't want to do a hybrid class. So, but I don't think that that's the case right now. Many schools are switching to this hybrid format. These days I'm also a learner. I'm learning French, and I achieved B2 level. That's upper intermediate level. And I'm taking this course with one of the French schools here in Toronto, and they do not have hybrid format. And I think that's a good thing, because you gotta make this distinction, make this kind of decision whether you're offering fully online or you're offering fully online or fully offline. I think students can benefit most from that, and the teacher is going to be less stressed. So also the thing is that some students, they prefer to just be online because it makes things easier for them. So more and more schools are transitioning into offering classes online. By the way, right now I own my own business, and I'm working as a self-employed instructor, and you're more than welcome if you are preparing for CELPIP or for IELTS or for I don't know, like a job interview. I can prepare you for that. So I work with all kinds of students, all kinds of backgrounds. Like I work with Asian students, with Latin American students, with post-Soviet Union countries, like Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus, and Kazakhstan, and other countries like that. So for me, you are a student, you are unique, you're amazing. And I treat every student fairly and equally, and I treat my students, my clients, with respect. And I think that's what makes this Toronto experience so useful, because I was working with so many people coming from very different backgrounds and managing those large groups, working with different mentalities, and I was using different teaching tools, because in some cases for one of the schools I was working in a hybrid mode. And imagine, I was trying to engage my students who were online, some of them were offline. I was always creative, though in some of the schools we used the textbook, we follow the standard, but I would always make sure that I cater for my students' needs or their interests as well, just to spice up and make my lessons interesting. And I think there are pros and cons when it comes to working in Toronto private language centers. I would say pay attention if you are a teacher, yes, or if you're a student. Just always check out the reviews, the social media of the school. Check what kind of career prospects they offer if you're a teacher, because in my case, I always wanted to grow. I always wanted to be something more than just a teacher, maybe to be a manager, maybe to manage my own school, to be a business owner. I have lots of ambitions, and I think I'm proud of that I don't want to just get stuck in one place doing the same job. I want to evolve. I want to try new things. And there are so many key lessons and insights I want to share with you guys. So first and foremost, that of course, it's always worth trying different schools if you're a teacher. And I think if you are highly qualified and if you have those required certifications, you will always succeed. And it's up to you. The more you work, the more you earn. You gotta be prepared to tutor, to hustle a lot. That's just how our industry works. And I think also look at whether they index the salary or not, adjust the salary based on the inflation. Maybe always clarify with your manager how they distribute the hours so that it doesn't come as a surprise. And it's important that you gotta be able to work with large groups. And of course, you gotta be able to tutor as well. And it's a skill. Your schedule is going to be, in most cases, very flexible. And in some cases, you're gonna work during the weekend as well. There is always imbalance. This work-life balance, forget about it. There is no such thing for a tutor, for a teacher in most cases. If you wanna have a decent pay, a good life, you gotta hustle a lot. And I wish we had more standardization when it comes to minimum pay and working conditions for language schools in Toronto. But businesses do what they can, right, to serve the community. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe in the future, it's going to change for the better. So mixed formats, large groups, what else? I think the important thing is that you meet lots of nice people and you talk to lots of people who represent different cultures. For me, that was the most valuable thing, a valuable experience, meeting new people. Of course, I think that a lot of great professionals are undervalued, and I think we should pay our teachers decent pay. And if I were a manager, yeah, in my case, like right now, if I have teachers working for me, I would always pay a decent pay, decent salary. And that's why those teachers are never going to leave, because I pay them decently. So that's very important. Because I think it's more than just a job. Being an ESL instructor, being a teacher is more than just a job. You have this emotional tax as well, because you spend so much time with different people. So just, in my opinion, just to summarize that, being an ESL instructor in Toronto is invaluable. That was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me, for sure. But I never say that it was easy, because there were so many moments when I struggled, when I just wanted to quit. But I did that for my immigration pathway, and I think I earned what I got. So it's just amazing. And I think that every good teacher should try that. Every teacher should have this experience just to see for themselves. And I hope that your language school just appreciates you, values you, and you get this pay that you deserve. Anyway, if you ever need help with English, and if you ever want to work with me and my team, you're more than welcome to join me, to be with me, and to study and learn with me. Because I'm that person who appreciates her workers, her students, her business. And I think that's what we should build on. And I hope you have an amazing day. And yeah, see you in the next episode.